Welcome to Florida in 1967, a year where the humidity was high, the hairspray was flammable, and a man named Robert J. Erra decided that healthcare was just a loose suggestion for profitable chaos. If you're looking for the craziest story, you have to look at the spectacular multi-car pileup of ethics that was the Miami Eye Foundation. While the rest of the world was busy with the summer of love, Erra and his band of merry administrators were busy turning a non-profit eye clinic into what was essentially a luxury frat house funded by people's cataracts. It wasn't just a hospital, it was a masterclass in how to treat a Medicare check like a blank invitation to a disco. Imagine, if you will, a medical facility where the most intensive surgery being performed was the extraction of cash from the federal government. The Miami Eye Foundation managed to bill the government for so many procedures that it's a miracle the entire population of South Florida wasn't walking around with bionic vision. Robert Erra, a man whose charisma apparently blinded investigators for a good while, didn't just want to help people see. He wanted to help himself to the finer things in life. We're talking about a guy who used hospital funds to buy everything from luxury cars to gold-plated plumbing, because nothing says quality ophthalmology like a bidet that costs more than a nurse's annual salary. The sheer audacity of the billing was where the smart aleck friend in all of us starts to scream. These guys weren't just padding the bill. They were writing fiction that would make Stephen King blush. They were charging for surgeries that never happened, on patients who didn't exist, or perhaps on patients who had just wandered in looking for the bathroom and left with a five-figure invoice attached to their shirts. It was 1967, the early days of Medicare, and the system was basically a giant bucket of money with a sign that said, "Please take some, we aren't checking." Erra didn't just take some. He brought a literal industrial-sized vacuum to the party. Naturally, the lifestyle of a visionary hospital administrator in Florida involves some extracurricular activities that have nothing to do with glaucoma. Erra's personal life was a fever dream of 1960s excess. He was reportedly using hospital money to fund a private club, decorate his mansion, and likely keep the local champagne industry in business. The hospital's board of directors apparently had the collective investigative prowess of a bag of wet hair, as they watched money fly out the door and into Erra's pockets without so much as a "Hey Bob, why does the eye clinic need a fleet of Cadillacs?" It was a beautiful time to be a grifter in the Sunshine State. Eventually, the federal government, which usually moves with the speed of a tectonic plate, realized that the Miami Eye Foundation was consuming more money than a small moon. When the IRS and federal investigators finally crashed the party in '67, they found a paper trail that looked like a confetti parade of fraud. The nonprofit status was revealed to be a hilarious joke, as the only thing not profiting was the taxpayer. Erra had effectively turned the concept of healthcare into a pyramid scheme where the top of the pyramid was his swimming pool and the bottom was, well, everyone else's eyeballs. The trial that followed was a glorious mess of, "I didn't know," he said, she said, "and look at this shiny watch I bought with your taxes." Erra's defense was basically the 1960s version of shrug emoji. He tried to frame himself as a pioneer who was just cutting red tape, but it turns out red tape is often what prevents you from buying a yacht with Medicare funds. The sheer volume of the embezzlement was so high that it forced the federal government to actually start thinking about oversight, a concept that Florida has been trying to avoid since it was just a swamp full of mosquitoes and questionable land deals. The fallout from the Miami Eye Foundation scandal was the first real oops moment for the Medicare program. It proved that if you give people a bottomless pit of cash and a noble-sounding cause like preventing blindness, someone is going to try to buy a private island. It was the OG Florida man healthcare scam, setting the gold standard for every shady Medicare fraud clinic that currently populates a strip mall between a vape shop and a taxidermist. Erra was the trendsetter, the man who looked at a stethoscope and saw a gold leaf straw for sipping taxpayer mojitos. What makes this the craziest story isn't just the theft, it's the vibe. It was the peak of Florida's transition into a place where the sun makes people's brains melt in very specific, profitable ways. In 1967, while NASA was trying to get to the moon, Robert Erra was trying to see how many luxury items he could fit into a medical expense category. He was truly a man ahead of his time, or at least a man who knew that in Florida, if you wear a nice enough suit and talk about the children or the elderly, people will let you walk out the front door with the furniture. So here's to the Miami Eye Foundation. The hospital that didn't just care for your eyes, it made sure you couldn't believe them. It remains a testament to the fact that in the 60s, a good tan and a fraudulent invoice could get you further than a medical degree ever could. It was a year of revolution, sure, but in Miami, the only revolution was the spinning of the odometer on Erra's hospital-funded Mercedes. It's the kind of story that reminds us why we have auditors, and why nonprofit is often just French for don't look at the books too closely. In the end, Erra got caught, the foundation crumbled, and the government tightened the screws on healthcare billing, well, slightly. But the legend of the man who tried to turn cataracts into a kingdom remains the ultimate 1967 Florida healthcare fever dream. It was a time of innocence lost, money found, and a very expensive lesson in why you shouldn't let a man with a gold bidet handle your grandmother's eye surgery bill. If you're ever in Miami and see a particularly shiny building, just remember, it was probably built on the dreams of a 1960s fraudster who really loved his luxury cars. The moral of the story? In Florida, the sun isn't the only thing that'll blind you. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the shady side of the Sunshine State, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because we've got plenty more skeletons in the Florida closet. Stay skeptical, stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next one.